Welcome to Ask the Expert with noted radio host Steve Sleeper. Each week, Steve interviews entrepreneurs and professionals and shares their intriguing stories of success and service. Now, here's radio veteran Steve Sleeper.
Our guest today is Mark Underwood. He's a personal injury attorney in Huntington, West Virginia. Mark, how are you?
I'm great, Steve. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Hey, tell me a little bit about yourself and your firm.
Well, I've been out of law school for nearly 30 years, in business as Underwood Law Offices for nearly 20 years. I have an office in Huntington, West Virginia, and an office in McKinney, Texas, which is just north of Dallas, Texas, part of the DFW metropolis. And we do everything from the worst disasters in the country to a car wreck that's very traumatic to a family. For example, we are currently involved in the West Texas fertilizer plant explosion that killed 15 people and injured about 350 other people. We also are involved in the chemical spill case in Charleston, West Virginia, that where 300,000 people had their drinking water poisoned by a leaky tank on the Kanawha River that resulted in a class action. So we're doing everything from some of the biggest and worst disasters. In the past, we had 11 people who were injured in the Upper Big Branch mine explosion case that killed 29 people. So we're doing extremely large disasters to a car wreck or injury or wrongful death case that's happened to an individual, resulting in loss of a loved one or serious injuries to a loved one for a family.
All those big cases are stuff I remember reading about. But let's focus on car accidents. Let's say I've been in an accident. Won't the insurance company take care of me? I mean, why do I need an attorney?
Well, it's the job of the insurance company to pay as little as possible to a claimant. In fact, it owes that duty to its shareholders to pay as little as possible to a claimant. And one way to find out if the insurance company is treating you fairly is simply to ask them what the policy limits are. And if they tell you what the policy limits are, they're probably treating you fairly. If they don't tell you what the policy limits are, if they won't tell you what the policy limits are, they're not being fair. How can anyone decide how much money they should settle for without knowing how much money is available?
Oh, I see. Okay. So if I come to a personal injury attorney like yourself, what's the cost associated with that?
Well, typically the initial appointment is free, and virtually all personal injury attorneys are doing the cases on a contingency basis. Contingency basis means that you don't pay any money up front, that the lawyers take a percentage when the case settles. Most lawyers are doing those for about 40% these days because of the number of experts that are involved in some of these cases. And if the case is unsuccessful, you don't pay the lawyer anything. If the case is successful, the lawyer will take his attorney fee and whatever costs were incurred for things like filing of a complaint or a petition and depositions out of the settlement at the end or at trial.
Now you're in West Virginia and Texas, but we've got folks probably listening in all the states. Just some advice here. What should we look for in a personal injury attorney?
Well, there's two things that I always tell people to look for, or there are two categories of things that I tell people to look for. The first category is you come in the door, you talk to a lawyer. What you want is comfort, compassion, communication, and skill. The lawyers should be giving you comfort right up front, acknowledging what you've been through, being able to relate to what you've been through. They ought to be able to provide compassion. That means a sympathetic shoulder for you to lean on about. At the same time, they ought to be communicating with you on a regular basis all the time. And one of the ways we communicate with our clients is we actually have a client portal on our website where the clients can go to the client portal and log into their actual case in our case management program. And then, of course, you're looking for a lawyer that has skill. Well, what does it mean to hire a lawyer with skill in the personal injury setting? Well, the way I typically explain that to people is skill is comprised of basically three legs of a triangle, or three sides of a triangle. The first side of this triangle is the lawyer having the money to put into your case to develop it and prove what you need to get to court. The second side of the triangle is having good support staff. You can have the greatest lawyer in the world, but if they don't have good, trained, skillful, competent support staff, your case is not going to get done right. The third aspect, or the third side of the triangle, is the skill of the lawyer. Has the lawyer tried cases? Has the lawyer done CLEs that are important to your type of case? Has the lawyer handled a case similar to yours? And is the lawyer capable of doing a good job when you go to trial? If those three sides of the skill triangle aren't there, the triangle's going to fall. So you're looking for comfort, compassion, communication, and skill. Skill is the three sides of the triangle: the skill of the lawyer, the skill of the staff, and the money to put into your case.
Yeah, good things to keep in mind. Okay, now, speaking of keeping something in mind, I got to imagine that if somebody's injured, they're probably not all there mentally. They may not be thinking clearly at the time. Is there something a person should know in advance, keeping that in mind?
Well, that's where the comfort and the compassion and the communication come in to play. The staff should know, and the lawyers should know, that this person's just been through a traumatic event, and this person is not thinking clearly, and this person needs some hand-holding and some help. And the client should expect that, and the client should be looking forward to that, and the client should get some comfort, communication, and compassion from the law firm.
A reasonable expectation on the client's part. Yeah. Okay, now here's a term I hear a lot: workers' comp. Kind of shifting gears a little bit, but what's workers' comp? Workers' compensation programs all across the United States is a form of insurance that's provided to employees in the event that they're hurt on the job. So, for example, if you're at your job, especially if you're a construction worker, and something should fall from up above you, or if you should fall through a floor and be injured, workers' compensation should step in to pay for those injuries and your time off from work as part of the employment process. Now, in some cases and in some states, under particularly bad circumstances, you can get around workers' compensation and still pursue a personal injury case. In West Virginia, it's called a deliberate intent claim. In Texas, it's called a gross negligence claim. We just finished a case that an older gentleman, on his first day at the job, he'd been there for about 3 hours, was walking by a bale of 2,000 pounds of cardboard all strapped together, and he was walking by his first 3 hours on the job. The bale of cardboard fell off because it was stacked too tall, and it crushed him. And he was, even though he'd only been on the job for 3 hours, he was covered by workers' compensation, but we were also able to prove gross negligence and establish that the conduct of his employer was particularly bad, and pursue an injury claim or a wrongful death claim also as part of that workers' comp case. So workers' comp is there to pay you when you're injured on the job, but sometimes, in particularly bad cases, you can get around what's called the workers' comp bar and still pursue a personal injury case. Okay. Now, I know this is like asking how long is a piece of string, but is there anything else I should know?
Well, when you've been through a very traumatic event and you've been injured, all of a sudden you're without work because you're too hurt to go back to work. You're getting a lot of bills. You're not able to do the things you used to be able to do. And it's creating stress for you on the job. It's creating stress for you in the pocketbook, and it's creating stress for you in your family. And, under those circumstances, you want somebody who is going to be able to lend that sympathetic ear, that compassionate ear, and hold your hand through this process. You don't want somebody who's going to yell and scream at you. Some lawyers are yellers and screamers, and some lawyers think that yelling and screaming at their client is the way to get things done. I've found that typically clients that are going through very traumatic events and under a lot of stress do not react well to a lawyer who's creating additional stress for them. So, they need somebody who understands the comfort you need, can give you some compassion, can communicate regularly on your case, and has the skill to get the job done for you.
Our guest today, Mark Underwood, Underwood Law Offices, offices in Huntington, West Virginia, and also McKinney, Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Mark, how can we reach you?
The best way to reach us is toll-free, 844-UNDERWOOD. That's toll-free, 844-UNDERWOOD. Those numbers are 844-863-3796. Again, 844-863-3796.
Hey, Mark, thanks for being on the show today.
Steve, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening to Ask the Expert with Steve Sleeper. Join us next time as entrepreneurs and professionals share their intriguing stories of success and service.